Hello, 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 family. Welcome to another episode of Epic Understanding. I am your host, Coach Love, and I'm very excited about today's show. But I must admit, I'm a little bit stressed. And the reason why I'm a little bit stressed is because our guest, Joy Jamison, who is the owner and creator of these beautiful NFTs, she's just in a difficult situation in the Middle East. And so she's having a little trouble right now, and I'm just really hoping that she is going to still be able to join us. That said, we're still going to chat about the joy and power of women in STEM, and I want to talk to you about these. Two acronyms. There's STEM and then there's STEAM. And quite frankly, I had heard of STEAM just like once, maybe last year, and didn't hear much about it, again. And then all of a sudden, when I was developing this show with Mr. Pelu, um, this acronym popped up again, and I was like, well, what is STEAM have to do with STEM? And so we started investigating it and figuring it out. So, Mr. Pelu, how you doing?
I'm doing great, doing great.
All right. So, in your mind, what do you think the biggest difference is between STEM and STEAM?
The main difference between STEM and STEAM is the addition of art. Now, we usually think of
Uh-oh, I may have lost Mr. Pelu, but while he is pulling that together, I do want to give a big up to my Loveland family, my honeybees. Hello, Annan. Hello, Charmin. I have a new person here. See, so, ooh, Samaril? I don't know how to say that. So forgive me if I butchered your name. You know, you can laugh at me. Maybe you'll come up one day and tell me the actual way to pronounce your name. But I will tell you this. In my conversation with Joy prior to the show, we were talking about the number one area in the STEM process, or the STEM sector that is life changing. And for her, she said it was. Oh, hi, CeeLo. All right, all right, all right. I appreciate that. Um, but she was telling me that the number one uh, way to make money as it relates to STEM is the technology piece. And now that I know that you're CeeLo, if you have a thought on STEM and how it relates in the global process. I don't remember the organization that you are part of, but what I do understand about that particular organization is that it is a worldwide organization and it's looking at things globally. So I would actually love to hear your thought process on STEM or STEAM as it relates worldwide, and what are you hearing about it? Because the reality is, women are looking to change their lives. You know, this is Women's History Month. We just got over Women in the you know International Women's Day, and at the rate that we're going, it could be several generations before women are equal in the workplace and equal in politics. So what that tells me is we just simply can't go at that rate. And for me, we need to work at the highest levels. And the easiest way to make that change, I think, is in technology. I think that's the easiest way to have a level playing field. And I must say that when Joy showed me her NFTs, I was blown away. I want to share my screen with you. And To be very honest, I just never dreamed of having NFTs that look like this. Look at this. Look at this. I'm floored. Look at how beautiful her NFTs are. Can you all see that? Just gorgeous, striking, one after another, one more beautiful than the next. I mean, gorgeous upon gorgeous upon gorgeous. The detail and the colors and the vibrancy. And so for me, when I saw this, when I saw these NFTs, and they were a reflection of me and things that I grew up understanding that beauty was, I was blown away. I was absolutely blown away, and I didn't realize um, how much it would mean to me until I saw it. I was like, oh my goodness, these are some of the most beautiful pieces of art I have ever seen. So, being that I do not necessarily understand the NFT process, I understand that it is you know, a, a digital footprint and it is worth a certain amount of money. But I don't know how you establish the value of that. And this is what I hope that Joy was going to be sharing with us. And so I really hope her situation settles down in a way where she can come on. Like I said, she is in the Middle East at this particular moment, and so I'm really I'm
Good
keeping my.
news, everybody.
What's the good news?
She'll be here. She'll be here in a second. She'll be here in a second. It was a miscommunication with the message you sent her. I'll send it to you. It was a miscommunication, but she'll be ready. She'll be here in about 10 minutes. Give her about 10 more minutes. Give her until the top of the hour, and she'll be ready to rock and roll. Thanks everybody for the wait.
10, okay, 10 minutes. All
I mean
right.
not 10. Give her like to the at least the top of the hour. 10 minutes, but give her give her the top of the hour. Top of the hour.
I see. Okay, well, Charmin's really happy, and I'm gonna go with, awesome. Listen, this is the joy of being live. So we're gonna get a lot of our we're going to get a lot of our questions answered, and we are um, developing them as we go along. So, of course, we have some of the questions that I brought up, and I'm still very interested to see what CeeLo has to say about the global presence of women in STEM. I'm very interested in that. And so, CeeLo, if you can pop up and um, share your thoughts on that, I really would like to know. Um, that said, I want to go back to these NFTs if you don't mind, or better yet, um, let me pop this up here. Hold on one second. Can you all still hear me if I with this up there?
Yeah, we can still hear you.
Okay, great. Um, by the way, this is Joy in the middle. This beautiful young lady is Joy in the middle. And I'm curious to ask her who these other women represent in her life. So I'm curious to ask her about that. But it is absolutely amazing how she has created such vibrancy with these images. So I can tell that NFTs are not just art. They are beyond art, but I want to find out what more that represents. And I'm wondering if she has actually made history as well, like if there are other people in this space um, as well, like if she is the first Black woman to make this particular type of representation in the field. So I don't even know if she's asked herself that particular question, but if she has, or if she has and she's found out an answer, about that, then I think that would be amazing. I think that is amazing. So that's really cool. Plu, are you there?
Yes. I'm still here. I'm just getting everything ready, making sure she's being here. I'm working everything out. That's all.
Okay. Okay. Oh, are you talking to her?
No. I'm not talking to her. I'm just doing some other things. I'm not talking to her. I'm doing some backroom stuff. I'm not
Oh,
talking
yeah.
to her right now.
You know what? Since I have you here, I think you have some good news to share about an upcoming show.
Well, since we had such grave and I mean that's grave, such rave reviews about about our special blood brothers, we hoping to give you a part two. Stay tuned. Keep the notifications bell on. Like, comment, subscribe to Blood Brothers One. If you missed it, it was a phenomenal show. We had we had the wonderful Abhijit Iyer Mitra from India come on and bless us with his presence. Yeah, I'm giving us a unique geopolitical understanding of the situation going on right now in with Russia and Ukraine. Also joining us was the wonderful Old Blue, military blogger and counterinsurgency expert. He gave us a wonderful breakdown of what he knows, drawing on his years and years of experience in the military and counterinsurgency matters, and also being a person well versed in history and geopolitics himself. Also joining us was our beloved Lovelanders, including Julia, including Silos, and let me go back, Julia, real quick. Julia's contribution was beautiful because she's actually of Ukrainian descent. She's of Jewish Ukrainian descent, and fun fact: the current president of Ukraine, Vladimir Zelensky, is also of Jewish Ukrainian descent. So she came about a first-hand account of her feelings as being as being a Ukrainian, somebody of Ukrainian origin, and how this personally hits home for her. So everybody, stay tuned. Stay tuned to Coach Love. Like, comment, subscribe on Blood Brothers Part One. Subscribe to Coach Love. Hit your notifications bell. When we're ready for Part Two, we will be there, be square. It's always better to be live because you come in, join the conversation, bring your thoughts out, and have the time with us. So we love y'all, Love Land. Stay in tune. Thank you.
You want to know what? You make me hype listening to listening to. I was there, but like, you make me hype listening to you talk about it. I am actually really looking forward to the Blood Brothers show, and I'm looking forward to Julia's show that's coming up on Sunday, where she shares her personal history of growing up in Ukraine. So it is going to be epic. It's like we're on a trajectory right now, right? We're on a trajectory. We are diving into what's going on in Ukraine. We are taking a deep dive as it relates to family. We are figuring out what it's like on the geopolitical side, and then we're also taking a broad look at it to see how other countries besides America are really connected to it and involved in it. And here we are again. So I think that maybe there was a disconnect with the messaging. I'll tell you a little bit about what I know about Joy. She is a woman of God, and her and I had a conversation, or actually a couple of conversations about our relationship with God, and she was invited to an additional event beyond this particular event. I've told you about the women's group that I'm a part of, um, and it is called the Women of Blessing, and we meet on Saturdays. But I find it odd that she would have gotten the two times mixed up, but perhaps in the excitement of it all, perhaps that's what happened. So, um, if you are a woman, sorry, no fellas allowed, but if you are a woman and that you are working to grow your relationship and deepen your relationship with God, then perhaps we should talk. I'm certainly not trying to sell Jesus to anybody. I think he, that those relationships are created on, on its own. But at the same time, if you're a person of faith and that is something that you desire that connection with other women of faith, then this is a great way to grow deeper. It's a wonderful way to have further connection. It is a wonderful way to release. I have to say, being a part of Women of Blessing is one of the things that has changed my life. It's really, besides creating a relationship with God, having a group of women specifically in my life that also have a relationship with God, that also are very intentional about walking with God, is the really one of the best things that I've ever done. And I want to talk about having a relationship with God. What it doesn't mean is that I'm an expert in the Bible. What it doesn't mean is that I walk around telling anybody else what to do. I can barely tell myself what to do. Okay? It doesn't mean any of those things. That mean what it does mean is that I am a person who is working towards her relationship with God in an active way, and I enjoy people who are doing the same. Hello, Julia. Hold on, I want to get Mr. Blue up
Good
here.
morning.
Hello, good morning. Good morning. How are
Or
you
should I say
doing?
good evening?
Well, yeah, good morning and good evening. Thank you, Mr. Let's thank Mr. Pelu for helping us get this together. Mr. Pelu?
Yes, 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 yes. So everybody, yes, here's the lovely joy. So y'all could begin this lovely show. Thanks everybody for coming out. And I'll step out and I'll leave it to the ladies to handle this wonderful affair. Thank everybody for coming out.
Thank
So
you.
much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Uh-huh. Bye-bye.
Good morning.
Good morning, and good evening. All of those beautiful things. So, I was telling them. At first, we were thinking that was something going on for you as it relates to the Middle East. But then Mr. Pelu came on and said that you had a little bit of confusion
With
about
the
the Women of
time.
Blessing time versus this time. Is that true?
Yes.
I
Yeah.
see.
Yes. Yeah. That's what it is. I think the last message I got from you was it's 9:30
Yeah, that
Eastern.
was
9:30
right.
oh yeah, 9:30, 10:30. That was for the women of blessing.
Yes, yes, yes,
Okay.
yes, 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 yes. But the other one, the we have two things going on. So I see that you um, confuse the Women of Blessing time with the
With
time
the
for
this
shooting. You know,
this.
there's more
Yeah,
than
I
one
saw
ball
that.
in the air,
Yeah, if I was calculating the time and I was like, well, it's almost time for work, but I think I can make it to work afterwards because
right?
it
So
seems
you
like
didn't
it's only
register
an
the
hour.
you didn't register the showtime because we had already established that showtime. But I
Yeah,
see, uh-huh,
yeah,
I see,
and
I see.
my fault. And the last message from you I read, I was like, okay, 9:30, ten thirty
Yeah, because
central.
I want your lovely presence as well in the Women of Blessing. Quite honestly, I think all that women can do to lift one another up and to celebrate one another in a holistic way is very, very important. And I think it is lovely that you have done such a beautiful job in celebrating women, and then in particular women of color. Like I'm going to say, look at this. Look at what you've done. Look at this. Isn't this gorgeous? Look at
Oh,
what you've
thank you.
done. Isn't it just beautiful?
Thank you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
And
And
so,
it took me a while to get there. I'm not an artist by nature, but it took me a while, and I finally got there as far as doing art. So that is absolutely lovely. That is lovely. Thank you for putting that up there.
It is amazing. Tell me, wait, and I just want everyone to know this person in the middle, this is Joy. So this is her art of herself. It's gorgeous. What did you use to what did you use to make the colors so vibrant? What did you use?
Okay, so first of all, the actual photography was absolutely vibrant to begin with. And
Mm-hmm.
so I use Photoshop and I use a couple of other digital artwork software, just basically to transform the photograph into an avatar, and then
Okay.
decide on the background that suits the face and the personality of the person who's up there. So and then change the eye color, enhance the makeup, and that's basically how I do it. That is basically how to do it. So there's a lot of there's various different software in layers that you start
Mm-hmm.
off with to turn a photograph into an avatar, and that is how we do it. And it takes a
So
while, and each lady is unique. And if there's no headpiece or, you know, just depends on what you want to do. You can change the hair color, you can change the eye color, you could add jewelry, you could add, just different things. But it takes me a while. Absolutely takes me a while.
it is stunning. So what those are avatars. Um,
Yeah.
I got it. Can you tell us how do NFTs obtain their value?
Okay, so that's a long story. Now, what an NFT is known as a non-fungible token. That
Mm-hmm.
is what an NFT is. And what is a fungible token versus a non-fungible token? I
Mm-hmm.
know a lot of people know about Bitcoin. Everyone knows about Bitcoin. That's the main coin that everyone knows about. So Bitcoin it's a token. It's a cryptocurrency, and it is unique in a way that it's a digital form of value. Just like we have the dollar, it's a form of value.
Uh-huh.
And $1 here and $1 there are the same. They're fungible. In other words, you have two $1 bills and they're the same thing. They have the same value. I could
Mm-hmm.
give you a dollar here, and later on you can give me a dollar back. It's the same thing. It's the same value.
Mm-hmm.
Same with Bitcoin, Litecoin, Dogecoin, all these other cryptocurrencies you hear about. One Bitcoin has the same value. It's the same thing, even though it's a unique one, just like the unique dollar bill, but it has the same value. It's fungible,
Mm-hmm.
it's reproducible. You can have another one. Whereas a non-fungible token means a unique piece, a unique one. So in the
Okay.
yeah, in the cryptocurrency world is you mint, as in you produce, just like you mint a dollar, you mint a token that is non-fungible, that's one of a kind, that's unique. And so once the technology was put into place where you could mint tokens that can't be reproduced, there's something called a blockchain. A blockchain is really transparent. It lets you do something that the whole world can always see.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like in a bank where it's kind of hidden behind the scenes. So on a blockchain, you can mint a token that is one of a kind. And about a year, 2 years ago, there was uh, craze. They were called crypto kitties. There was a person who decided they were going to mint different kitties, different shapes, different sizes, different eye colors, different fur, and there was just one of a kind. It wasn't a reproducible coin. And then
Uh-huh.
that kind of went kind of viral. And then there was something called CryptoPunks, and then it just took over. And so artists decided that if I have a one of a kind piece and I'm living in Australia and I'd like to sell my piece to the world, I could actually do that in a form of minting a digital artwork, a token that is just one of a kind. So that is basically what an NFT is. It's called a non-fungible token. And you can attach an NFT to different things. It could be a physical piece. I know of artists that actually you buy the NFT and they can send you the physical piece. So you own a digital copy of a physical piece. It could be a piece of music. I was just speaking to an artist, a person yesterday who is starting to make NFTs of musical pieces. So instead of buying something in a music store, you could actually buy the NFT, which is a sound bite. You can have little bits of animation that's NFTs. The NFT space is broad, it's vast. And when I did get into the space, I was in the cryptocurrency space and I started looking at NFTs, and there's some beautiful artwork there, but there was no representation of us. There
Mm.
weren't any representations of us. And in fact, the one you have in the middle, the first avatar, I made that one. I was like, well, I'm just going to put myself out there as an NFT. And friends and family were like, that's beautiful. I think you need to do more of these. You definitely need to, as best as you can, do
Mhm.
as many of these as you possibly can. So based on that, it took off. It took off. It took me a while, first of all, to try and learn the software, you know. And after that, after I've done that, I was like, okay, I could do that. And it does take a little bit, but learning Adobe Creative Cloud is not easy. It took me a while, but fortunately, from my work in the past, um, I had got some exposure to Adobe Creative Cloud when I was doing some curriculum work, because we had to, make sure all the pictures, etc., were okay in the textbook. Then we had to learn how to do Photoshop, and we learned some different things. So I just kind of used that experience to be able to create these. So
Mm.
that's basically how I came about with my NFTs. But they were for us to get a representation in the space, which I now see quite a few of those, which is good. But it's very, very small percentage. So.
I still think it's very, very rare. Now, I must say, I have a lot more questions about the NFT and the process, specifically what it takes to mint a NFT. But I'm going to come back to that. I'm going to save that question because those NFTs that you made actually represent where you are right now. What I want to talk about is how you got into the STEM space in the beginning, and then what STEM actually means. Because I'll tell you right now, there is a question, and this person, her name is Ashton Smith. She's a an Olympic gold medalist. Okay, but look at what she says. She says, "I wish I was smart enough to do STEM." You're talking about computers, mathematics, those types of things, and I am not smart enough to do any of that stuff. And I think that is how a lot of women feel. But you shared with me a story um, where if you made it very practical. Now this is a gold medalist who's saying this, and she happens to feel that way. So help make it practical and obtainable for us.
So, as a young girl, you know, and all young ladies, regardless of race, but young ladies of color, when we start learning science and math, we don't see representations of ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't see a representation of myself when I was growing up. In looking at science textbooks, your math teacher was most likely, not female, whether
Mm-hmm.
regardless of the race. So you don't see representations of yourself, and you start having this belief that you're not good enough, that you're
Mm-hmm.
not smart enough, but absolutely you are. Getting into STEM, getting into science, getting into technology, engineering, mathematics, is all around us. It's something that I call scientific literacy.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and mathematics literacy and technology literacy. She is definitely smart enough, and I am sure she is involved in STEM in her everyday life without her realizing. She's an Olympic medalist swimmer.
Mm-hmm.
You are involved in STEM. You can calculate when to turn without hitting your head on that wall when you're swimming. You know, doing everyday calculations, basic everyday calculations, just to get on with our everyday lives, with what we do.
Mm-hmm.
That is absolutely um, that is a thing that it's math, it's science, it's engineering. So yes, she is smart enough, and it's not a matter of smart enough. It just depends on what you're interested in, and that's why there's STEM and then there's stream, because there's other people that are interested in art, reading, writing. There's
Mm-hmm.
so much other things involved that you could do. So I wouldn't say you're not smart enough. There's no one who's not smart enough to do anything. Maybe there's the interest, or maybe you're just not aware of the fact that you are capable of doing something that you're capable of doing. Absolutely, she can. I think you can. You
I
can definitely
agree.
do it. Yeah.
I agree. And I will tell you the story of a young lady that and I'm calling her a young lady. She's not a spring chicken particularly anymore, but she currently works at Microsoft, and the thing that she did that got her notice is that she started talking about technology and her desire to be involved in technology. She took a technical course,
Okay.
and she just continued to make videos, and she got noticed based off of her passion. And then they began to educate her at Microsoft. Now, that's certainly a non traditional way of doing it, but my point in telling that story is right now there is a desire for people, period, in that field. People want to know who's interested and who's willing to do the work, right? So,
So
we are at a point in time that if you are willing to do the work, people are willing to entertain you in this space, and there's so many jobs in this space. We lack the people, right?
yeah, in
Mm-hmm.
fact, technology jobs now, and I'm in education. I'll talk about that a bit later on. But technology jobs now, they're more about the experience and the practical hands-on than
Mm-hmm.
they are about the degrees. They're more about the experience. People, Google, Microsoft, they really want young people, and anyone really who's interested. They want young people with the certifications and the willingness to work and the interest. It's kind of flipped around. If you are a young person and you can't figure out what to do with yourself, there are a lot of courses out there. There are a lot of certifications out there online. There's a site called Coursera. They have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of different programs that you could do to upskill yourself in technology.
You said it's
And
called Coursera.
yeah, Coursera.
Let me type. Can you type that into the private chat because I want to make sure everybody knows about it.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and let me just make sure I've got that right. And then I'll go ahead and put that in there. But okay, yeah, I just want to go ahead and get the website. There we go. Yeah, and it does they do professional courses, and let me see. They do a lot of courses, and you can learn a lot of things, and all of it is online. Most of it, if not most of it, all of it is online.
Okay. Okay.
Right, and I'm just copying the
Is it
link.
free?
A lot of them are free. There's a lot of free courses. One of the first things, once you and I'll put it in the chat. Where do I put it? Right there in the chat, right?
No, you put it in the private chat there. It says
Yeah,
private chat. Okay, yes, right
yeah.
there.
I'll send that to you. So then you
Awesome,
can go
great.
ahead and post that. And they have a lot of free courses in many, many different things. And it's not just in technology-based things. There are anything that interests you. You could do a science course, you could do a mathematics course, you could do a business studies course, you could do a cooking course, but it keeps you busy. And then you have these certifications and you can present these certifications because these tech companies now, they understand that it's all about practical hands-on. It's all about practical hands-on because we have students, and I'm an educator. Obviously, I love universities, but we have students that they graduate and they come out, and the first thing they're told is you don't have experience. But how do you have experience if you've been studying and you don't have work? And it's a vicious
Mm-hmm.
cycle. So even while you're at university doing your traditional studies, it is a good thing to pick up these courses because they're practical and they're hands-on. And like you said, a lot of them are free and they keep you busy and they upskill you to be able to do, science and math courses. But as far as being in STEM, it's for me it was a journey. It was a long journey that
Mm-hmm.
was happening without me knowing it was happening. As a child, I was born in the United Kingdom. I was raised in Sierra Leone, West Africa. And while I was there, I mean, I went to an all girls school, which was good because an all girls school, most of the teachers were female, but the
Mm-hmm.
science teacher and the math teacher were male, and that was just a thing.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I went to a Catholic girls' school. We had nuns and everyone else, but we had a lot of male teachers when it came to science and math. And you kind of don't relate, and you grew up thinking science and math are a boy thing. And
Okay.
um, and then I went to the United Kingdom to finish my schooling, and you still had that in your head. I was thinking going towards doing business, but we have a genetic disorder called sickle cell disease in my family, and I've
Oh,
always wanted to do some type of research because I know there was very limited back then. I knew that there was very limited things you could do about sickle cell disease. There were treatments, but they weren't anything moving towards the cure. And I always had in the back of my head that I wanted to go to do some type of work with sickle cell disease, but science and math difficult. Science and math, that's the boy thing, unless you're going to be a doctor, science and math. And I remember, I think it be the equivalent of the 10th grade.
okay.
I had a chemistry teacher. I never forget his name. His name is Mr. Ahmed, and and he really believed in my ability to do chemistry. He really did, and he encouraged me. He was like, "You can do anything you want to do in sciences." And when he came to choose his subjects to do later on to go to university, he's like, "I think you should go into the sciences." And he was right because my writing sucks. I wasn't very good at the English and the literature and all of that. So he encouraged me. He encouraged me. Mr. Ahmed told me you can do it, and I believed in myself. However, I came over a lot of obstacles as a young lady. I took computer science. I was good at computer science, and I say was. I
Hmm.
was good at computer science, but I was the only girl in
Okay.
the final year of the computer science class, and that didn't go well. Fortunately, there were other girls in physics and chem and bio. Um, and I kind of gravitated towards physics, chem, and bio with the intent in the back of my mind that I am going to go into bio research. I am going to help people like myself in my family with sickle cell
Hmm.
disease. I'm going to, help for a cure because you realize, as you become a young lady, that there are certain things that there's a lot of research on, and that this is before the internet. You had to go to the library to find things, and there was never any information in the magazines, in the science magazines, about what was going on with sickle cell disease. And so once I got to university, I got a degree in biochemistry with biotechnology. There were a lot of females in my class. In fact, we lifted each other up. I was in the UK, and I'm still good friends with them today. It was women of color. I still see them. I saw one of them this year, and and I saw the parents of another one this year as well. And we just form a group, and we helped each other to get through. I always say you can't get through without helping each other. And what I realized back then was that everyone has their strengths and weaknesses.
Hmm.
And when you find your strength, you use that strength that you have to prop up somebody else's weakness, and they use their strength to prop up yours. And once you form a community, then
Hmm.
everyone thrives. And I learned that while I was at university. What somebody was good at, I wasn't. What I was good at, somebody else wasn't. And we got together and we taught each other and we moved forward. And yeah, go ahead.
I want to just pause on a particular idea, and actually, I want to roll back
Mm.
because you talked about a time where you were the only person, um, only female in that particular field. So what area was that, and when was that?
That was in 93. No,
Mm-hmm.
no, before that. Yeah, 93. Yeah, that was in 1992, 93. In the United Kingdom, we have the schooling system. You have, well, they have key stage 1, 2, 3, 4 now, but back then you did high school. And then when you got to age 16, but before age 16, 14 to 16, you did something called O levels, which was what gave you
Mm-hmm.
your high school certification. And then half of the population kind of leaves and goes to vocational, goes to work, etc. And
Uh-huh.
then whoever wants to go into university did something called A levels.
Okay.
So I chose to do A levels in math, English, sorry, in math, biology, chem, physics, and computing. And in fact, it wasn't a full A level in computing; it was a half a A level because the most you can do is 4 A levels for time, purposes. And so the math was a half A level called an AS, and the computer science was also a half A level called an AS. And I was literally the only girl in the computer science class, and it was just all boys. I was the only girl in the entire school in the computer science class, and I only lasted a year and a half. And needless to say, I did not get that A level qualification in computer science. It was a foreign world. It was a difficult one.
It was a
Yeah.
difficult world. And so, were there any people of color there?
No, I was the only female.
So you were the
And I
only
was the
female
only
and you were the only person of color, and somehow you did not make it. Hmm. I wonder if there
somehow
was a
I did
deal
not
there.
make it. And
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 so
it was pretty,
I,
it was pretty
I don't
sad
think
because go ahead.
the reason why I'm pointing that out is because um, I don't think it's necessarily intentional, but sometimes there is a lack of camaraderie when there are people who are very different from you.
Yeah, there was that because I
Externally,
was,
yeah,
there was
externally, yeah.
there
When
was
people
that, and then there was this, it was just the boy thing as well. I had friends in that class, but they were, yeah, it was a
right,
strange world for me. And the saddest thing was in the O levels, because we had O levels and A levels. I actually got a B in computer science, and I could program in basic back then. And it was basic programming. You could program the printer to print, and basic things. You could program really basic graphics like a heart shape on the screen. I could do that. But then the programming language changed from basic to Pascal, and it seemed very foreign to me, and the boys got it. And back then I was like, I really convinced myself it was a boy girl thing, and I gave up after the first year because it was an AS level, which means it was only a year long. And I was told, well, you're doing really bad, maybe you're not ready for the exams, you could repeat. And I did it the second year, and I was like, halfway through the second year, I was like, this is not going to happen. But I was
right.
already registered for the exam, and it was one of those moments in my life where I gave up. One of the few moments, people who know me will tell you that was one of the few moments that I gave up. I remember I had a chemistry A level in the afternoon, and I had the computer science paper in the morning. And I studied all night for chemistry and I slept. I literally went in that exam room and I slept so that I
Mhm.
would do well for my chemistry because there was no point. And I think back to that now, and I was defeated. And I thought for a while I wasn't good at computers,
Mhm.
but I could have done it. I could have done it. And so, you know, when I hear things like I'm not smart enough, I think back to that. And I really believed I wasn't smart enough. Fortunately, I still had my biology, I still had my chemistry, I still had my physics, I still had the AS math, which was showing I was smart enough. But in computing, I was just like, okay, that's a boy thing. I'm just not smart enough. In fact, we had a piece of coursework, which is really interesting. Um, I actually came up with a plan, even though I couldn't write the program, to
Mhm.
write a dating app. This was in
Oh, really?
1993, yes, because there was the mailing dating thing.
Yeah.
And I actually came up with a plan to write a dating app. And I had my little coursework set up, and I'm like, we could have, statements that we could write a dating app. And the teacher laughed at me. And he's like,
Oh, wow.
dating app, like, typical girl. All you're thinking about is love.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh,
But, I mean, now you have Tinder and all of those things, and before then, a lot of these apps were, quite lucrative. So
you could have been at the forefront.
I
And
could
I
have.
guess one of the things that's really running through my mind is when there is the absence of camaraderie, there is the absence of synergy. And synergy is like the secret sauce, the secret ingredient that makes something powerful. You wonder, where did this come from? And how did they get there? And how did they make it through? it is a synergy that causes something to explode. It is the reason why things go viral, right? Um,
Absolutely.
the momentum that it creates. And so, in your initial run towards being within the STEM confines, you didn't have camaraderie of any kind. You were the only woman, and you were the only person of color. And what happened was isolation, not against you. You just weren't in the club.
No, no, absolutely not. But that changed when I got to college. It was,
Hmm.
you know, we all helped each other. There was a big group of people, and we were all in the biochemistry department, and we were all in the biosciences department. Somebody doing pharmacy, somebody doing microbiology. I was doing biochemistry. Our
Hmm.
first year and a half, we're all together, and then we kind of specialized, and we formed a team, and we pulled each other, and we helped each other, and that I mean collaboration is a big deal. And I found that no matter what space I found myself in, moving forward and moving on in life, that collaboration's a thing. If I'm in a space where I can't collaborate with others, the same thing will happen that happened, I suppose, in my computer science class. It will, you kind of pull back. So
It
as
might
an go ahead.
it can wear on you, but as we hover over that, I want to make sure I say expect to meet that type of adversity, but then expect not to buckle to it. So I wanted to hover over it, but at the same time, I wanted to say, now that we've told you this, and we told you that isolation is a possible danger in that field, I want you to go over that hump. I don't highlight it because I want it to be an excuse. I'm highlighting it because I want you to push through, because there is success on the other side of that.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely. There is success on the other side once you get over the isolation. And that is why networking is so
yeah.
important. No matter what space you find yourself in, networking is so important. Back when we were in school,
Hmm.
it was sit at your desk, look forward, listen to the teacher, talk.
Hmm.
Now, as educators, what we promote is group work.
Okay.
you
Yes.
know you go in to observe a classroom, a teacher's classroom, and you don't see group work. You're like, these kids are trying to work in isolation. Where's the collaboration? And that's in every subject, in every field. It's group work. And in the field of sciences, there has to be group work. If there isn't group work, then things don't move forward. The researchers are in groups, everyone is in groups. So definitely, you're right, isolation is is definitely not a good thing at all. And in my journey, once I had gotten over, not being able to do computer science, and gone to university and managed to do that, I did try doing biotech. That was the plan. I was going to go into biotech, and I was going to
Mhm.
go and do the sickle cell research thing. But I was an educator. I was always an educator. I always, even while I was in college, um, I taught. If it wasn't a friend,
Mhm.
somebody will explain something to me. Okay, okay, I got it. I got it. I can teach the group. Or I went to seek other students in high school, and I did private tuition, for money. And I realized that I'm an educator. I want to be a teacher. My father's an educator, and
Yeah.
it kind of pushed you towards go do medicine, go do medicine, go do medicine. And I was like,
What father wouldn't want his daughter to be, you
yeah.
know, a
And
doctor involved in medicine? What father wouldn't want that, right?
absolutely. And I was like, no, I think I'm going to go into education. And they're like, okay, fortunately they, kind of acceptance. And that's where my heart was, that's where I wanted to do. So, post degree, I went to do, a course in education. And that's just what I always wanted to do. And once I started in the classroom, I was just like, okay, this is where I belong. And again, in education, as educators, I think we're one of the biggest collaborative groups out there. Teachers help teachers,
Mhm.
educators help educators. It's very difficult to see a staff room where people are isolated. you have your planning periods together so that you guys can collaborate. Teachers cannot survive without collaboration because you have to find the best way to get to your students. Something works for that person. You find out how does it work for you. You walk past somebody else's classroom, you're like, that is so and so working so well in your class. How did you do that? Naturally, that's what teachers do. We collaborate and we talk to each other, and we find a way to make it work. So, and we try and do that in our students as well. This is way before group work was fashionable. I realized that my students, when I taught science, my students needed to collaborate and work together, not just in the lab, but in the everyday work.
So
They
before
need to
we go,
collaborate. Yeah,
before we go further, and you know, I realize that women are highly represented when it comes to education. But
absolutely.
what's not necessarily highly represented is women in science, technology, engineering, and math. Um, I skipped over art just because I do feel as women do have a voice in art. And I skipped over art because um, I am I am really dead set on this idea of women leveling the playing field, breaking this gap, the glass ceiling, um, and not taking 2 or 3 generations to do it. You know, and a big part of that is women making the income required and being in decision making positions. And so I want to know, what do you think women can do at the lowest level in order to make a change? How can we stimulate this?
Okay, at the lowest level, what women can do, I think, first of all, belief. You have to believe that I can do it. Everyone is as good as everybody else. We're all God's creation and we're all created equally. We know this. So
Hmm.
the first step is belief,
Hmm.
believing that you can do it. Unfortunately, we, not just women, people of color, we will have to work harder in whatever environment we find ourselves in than others. That's just the thing. And I say that unfortunately, but it's not unfortunate. It's actually, for me, um, it is a good thing because I'm confident in my abilities. You work hard and you believe. You have to believe and be confident in your abilities, and no matter what you're told, or no matter whatever you're told about your abilities, what you can and cannot do, no matter who you see moving forward based on maybe what they look like and where they're from, you have to believe that you can do it and you have the work ethic. And that's the third thing, work ethic. Work
Hmm.
ethic is something. Work ethic is something, as I think I told you in a previous conversation, I learned my work ethic in the United States. I've lived in 4 continents.
Yeah.
Yeah, and when I moved to United States, the United Kingdom, it was great. Worked hard, got my degree, worked hard, became an educator, worked hard. But there's something about work ethic that in the United States, and there's something about work ethic as African Americans in the United States that can't be that I've never seen that. I remember when I first started work in the U.S. Um, and I was like, we have to get to school at what time? I'm like, why? I was like, and there's work ethic in the United States that people in the United States have, and we like work. Once you find your niche and once you find what you're doing, we like work. And so to rise in any field, make sure you're in the right field, because if you wake up in the morning, it's like, oh my goodness, I hate doing this, you're not going to progress. You
Hmm.
have to find what you love doing, that you will wake up for every day, be it going to work, be it doing your own business. And I want to really talk about that. Doing your own thing, making sure that you have an independent stream of income, independent of your employer. But it was education was what I loved. I loved my students. I loved my school environment. There's no institution I have worked in that I've said I didn't like. I did. And I've been fortunate enough that everywhere I've been, there were a group of people, group of women, group of men that we worked with. But to move forward, you have to love what you're doing, and you have to have the work ethic, and you have to have a plan. You have to know where are you going. If you have a plan to rise above in any field, if you're in the biotech industry and you want to become one of the lead researchers, if you
Mhm.
are in education and you want to be an education leader, if you are in any field, you have to have a plan, you have to have the work ethic, and you have to love what you're doing, because the three of those go together. You could have an aspiration to rise up, but you don't work towards it, it's not going to happen. You can work really hard and have the aspiration, but you don't like it, and now that's a struggle. You have to love what you do, and you have to work hard, and you have to have a plan, and 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 then you definitely rise, and you definitely move on. So
Okay. So be a lifelong learner. Number
absolutely,
one,
yeah,
have the work ethic. Number two,
yeah.
do what you love. Number three.
Absolutely. You have to have the work ethic and do it. And I think number one, actually, maybe there's four parts, is believe in yourself. You have to believe in yourself. No matter what environment you find yourself in, you have to believe in yourself. You have to believe that you can do it, because you can. I mean, you absolutely can. And as women, sometimes, like I said, just like what happened in my computer science class, you just take a back step and said, okay, that's not for me, but it is for you. You know,
Mhm.
it is
Mhm.
for you, and you definitely can do it. For me, I was not a writer, I'm still not a writer. I can't write stories, I can't you know do business plans, etc. I could do now, but it took me a long time. um oh, there's a question right there. In the
Mhm.
British system,
Right. It says he's
learning process.
asking. He's asking, in the British system, can a student be undecided upon entry into university? So the side chat has a bunch, has conversation, but that was a really, really good question. So I said,
That's in the British system. No. You see, because the way the British system is set as far as the path to university, it's not like the American system where you graduate at age 18 and then you start college, and then maybe a year or so into college, you can change your major because you decide what you want to do. It's not like that, because we have the A level system. And after age 16, you choose 3 to 4 subjects that you concentrate on. And those are the subjects you do at university, because for university entry, for example, for engineering, you will need mathematics, you will need computer science, depending on which kind of engineering you're going to. Chemical engineering, you're definitely going to need mathematics, chemistry, and then 2 other science subjects. Um, so it's rather difficult, and it's very early on in life. You're age 16, you're like, what am I going to do with myself? And it seems like you have to decide. However, the British system also has a thing called a foundation year. And
mm-hmm,
in that foundation year, you can kind of change majors. But it is not as easy as in the US system to make a decision later on. You really need to figure out what do you want to do in university pretty early on, which is difficult for a lot of people. There's not that many people that I know of at age 14 who are thinking, I want to research sickle cell disease, therefore I know my path. And then to be fortunate enough to meet a teacher that said, you can do it because you're good at chem and that kind of thing. So in the British system, it's not as easy, but it's
mm-hmm.
doable. It's absolutely doable. Yeah.
I think people have to be wondering about sickle cell disease just a little bit. Would you mind explaining what that is and how it is approached in the STEM process?
Okay, so sickle cell disease is actually a genetic disorder, and I
Mm-hmm,
don't want to go too much into the genetics, but we're a product of our genes, the genes that we inherited from our parents. And
mm-hmm,
sickle cell is a genetic disorder that causes your red blood cells, the hemoglobin,
mm-hmm,
in the hemoglobin that make up your red blood cells, not to function in the right way. It
mm-hmm,
causes the hemoglobin not to carry oxygen as efficiently as it should, because we have red blood cells there. they're not a normal typical cell with a nucleus, etc. Their job is to carry up oxygen. That's what keeps us alive. That is
Mhm.
our blood cells, and there's little veins all over our body, not just the major arteries, but in our brains, in all our tissue, all our organs. We have these tiny little capillaries, and some are small enough for just one single blood cell to get through, deliver the oxygen, pick up the carbon dioxide, come back to your lungs, and keep doing it and doing it and doing it. Well, people with sickle cell disease, their red blood cells have there's a genetic mutation that causes the
Mhm.
protein in the red blood cell not to be um, formed properly. And it
Mhm.
does pick up oxygen, but in certain conditions, it will lose the oxygen and it shapes weird. You know, a red blood cell is shaped round. In sickle cell disease, the red blood cell is not shaped round, it is actually shaped as a sickle, and
Mhm.
and that is what sickle cell disease is. So, where,
Beautiful
yeah, but how
explanation.
does sickle
Beautifully done.
cell come about, and why does it affect mainly people of color? Now, sickle cell came about, and it affects mainly people of color because sickle cell disease is actually like a byproduct of protection against malaria. So why is it that it's only people, and I don't know if I could paste a
People
picture
who are
of,
close to the equator.
yeah, people who are close to the equator, because malaria is a thing. Malaria kills
Mhm.
people, and it kills a lot of people, and even now it does. Malaria is a major killer in Africa. It's 2022, but malaria is a major killer in sub-Saharan Africa. And so over time, what's happened is people with sickle cell disease who have that mutation, and all it was to begin with was just a mutation. So
Mhm.
if you're a carrier, you have the mutation. And as a carrier of sickle cell disease, not the whole disease, just you have a mutation because one of your genes is defective,
Okay.
you don't get malaria, and
What did
that
you
was,
say? You don't get malaria?
no, you don't get malaria because the
Okay.
malaria is a parasite that lives in the red blood cell.
I
And what
see.
happens is once the parasite gets into the red blood cell in a person with sickle cell trait or sickle cell disease, that blood cell changes shape. It sickles. And
Uh,
once it sickles, the malaria parasite cannot reproduce in a sickled red blood cell. And so the parasite doesn't take hold, and you don't even realize you have malaria because the malaria parasite, just like the COVID virus that reproduces in our cells, it
mhm.
cannot reproduce. Malaria is a parasite, not a virus, by the way, it's a parasite. And that malaria parasite cannot reproduce in red blood cell. So as a young child or as a young person, you don't get malaria, which means your chances of survival into adulthood to have children is increased.
Okay.
Well, when you have enough people who have had an advantage because they didn't die of malaria and they've lived into adulthood and
Mhm.
they're having children now. I have a sickle cell trait and I survived, and you've got a sickle cell trait and you survived, and then we have a child. Now there is a percentage, there's a big chance that our that offspring will have sickle cell disease. So it's all about the genetics. So if both of us have sickle cell disease, the trait, if we're both carrying sickle cell, then there is a chance that our children will have sickle cell disease. There's a 50% chance of that.
You
And then once you have two of the genes instead of just the one, the protection from malaria becomes a disease in itself. So your blood cells, they sickle without the malaria parasite. They sickle in a low oxygen atmosphere. They sickle when you're stressed. They sickle when it's too hot. They sickle when it's too cold. And when the red blood cells aren't formed correctly, going through the tiny capillaries in your bloodstream becomes a problem because they can cause a blockage. And then the tissue around that blockage begin to die, and then the person finds themselves in a painful crisis. It causes all kinds of organ failures. It's sickle cell disease. It's not a pleasant one, but
I have
it
to
was,
say
yeah.
that was one of the best and clearest explanations that I've ever heard on sickle cell disease. I don't think anyone's ever revealed to me the idea that it had a connection to malaria. I think that was brilliant and beautiful. Hashtag STEM, women in STEM. The
Yeah,
joy
very
and
interesting.
power of women in STEM. That was beautiful.
I mean, I think scientific literacy in general, I think it's very important for women, for all women. We make a lot of decisions subconscious, and you don't have to be in science. Just every day, you have to be scientifically literate because there's so many decisions that you make for your family and for yourself based on just being scientific literate. And I think that we should try and educate ourselves as best as we can so we can make informed decisions. Talking about vaccinations, even the pandemic actually did, I hope, increase a lot of scientific literacy in people.
I
But
think
at
it
the
did.
same time, it showed a lot of scientific illiteracy when you look at the arguments for and against masks and for and against vaccines, and just in general. It brought to the forefront that as a society, we have to do better with scientific literacy because it helps you in everyday decisions. It's amazing. Why does there have to be a law against seatbelts? Why do people have to get a ticket because you don't wear a
Mhm,
seatbelt? If
mhm,
you were just the basic scientific literacy, you would understand that you need to wear a seatbelt because your body cannot travel at the speed of a car and survive if it stopped. You know, just this simple, one of the simple laws of motion. You don't understand it, therefore we have to make a law to force people to protect themselves. But if you're scientifically literate, you do those protections yourself, and you don't depend on lawmakers and politicians to protect you or to tell you what to do and to tell you how to do it. So I do really, really, and it's not that hard these days. Back then you had to go to a library. Now everything's at your fingertips. Anything you want to find out is at your fingertips. You just have to type it in.
I
That's all I'm
agree.
saying.
I wanted to bring to our attention this very interesting and powerful comment from
Yeah.
Anna. He said, a lot of women from Sierra Leone, Nigeria, Ghana, and Africa are going into STEM in large numbers. Um,
If
why do you think? No, he says are. He's not making a statement.
yeah,
He
he's
says
asked.
are. So why or why not? Do you think that that's happening, or you think it's not happening?
I don't think it's happening at the rate that it should be, but it is happening, you know.
Okay.
And it comes down to resources, you know,
Mhm.
simple, it comes down to resources. It comes down to resources because, you know, it's not available. The resources for you to go into STEM is not available. The connectivity, internet connection. I can tell you one thing that this pandemic did as far as
Mhm.
um, it showed the gap. We call it the COVID gap in education. It showed the gap between being, you know, able to do something because of finances and because of infrastructure and because of politics, and not being able to do something. You know, that gap has always been there, but it highlighted it. And so you're asking about women in West African countries, are they going into STEM? Not as much as they should be. I don't think women in as many countries are going to STEM, but in West Africa, men and women aren't going to STEM as much because of the availability and the accessibility to the technology, the accessibility. I can speak for Sierra Leone. I can't so much speak for Ghana and Nigeria, but and I can speak a little bit for Uganda because I know someone close in Uganda who's trying to do a computer science course. During the pandemic, everything shut down. They want online courses, etc. Everything's shut down. However, um, because there is no availability, there aren't any resources for our young kids, boys and girls, to learn these particular subjects. It's very, very, very difficult for them to go into STEM. And one of the things that I'm hoping for in the future is for everyone to have accessibility to level the education field. And it's all about equity and equality in education. And there's been so much research done on the gap, the learning gap in different countries, and you could just see the graph. It just shows, you could tell where it is. You don't even have to, you could tell where it is where the gap is in learning. And no, they're not because of access, not just to the technology, but access to connectivity. We don't realize how connectivity, there's no broadband internet in so many places within the United States. In the rural South, there's no broadband within the
Mhm.
United States. And
You're right.
there is no broadband. And this is what I'm talking about. When the COVID started, I live in the Middle East. When the pandemic started in the country where I lived, within 3 weeks, literally, we shut down in March, end of February, March. And the students had a 3 week spring break rather than a 2 week spring break. And within that 3 weeks, the government where I live had made sure that every child was had a device in their hand, every child in public school. And not only that, the telecommunication companies had made sure that every home was connected with broadband. And during the COVID time, I believe they implemented 5G, and everything went smoothly.
This happened in the Middle East.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Mhm. I'm
I
only
remember,
highlighting that because that's where you are. This happened in the Middle
yeah.
East, and I have to say, America's still struggling. We're
Oh
still.
yeah, I was speaking to somebody yesterday just about that. I was telling her the same thing. I said, within 3 weeks, literally in 3 weeks, every child had a device in their hand, and every home was connected. And I remember the night before school opened back up online, we had a nationwide test of the bandwidth to make sure it could hold, and it held. And every child was on in every school, in every classroom at the same time to make sure that was possible. And after they did that, they tweaked some things and they staggered elementary and middle school, elementary and middle and high school, just to make sure the parents were able to help their children. But we had the connectivity. And then when you look at the research from, the international research, when you look at the countries in the Middle East, you see that that gap didn't COVID gap, yes, it existed because we were home, but it wasn't as large as in certain countries in the world, including the United States. But in West Africa, it's shut down. There were some places where kids learned over the radio,
Mhm.
but a face-to-face online environment wasn't a thing.
Mhm.
And so why do people not get into STEM? Just like you said, it's because, connectivity, for one.
Mhm.
There's a lack of connectivity, and that's, we talk about poverty. We know there's lack of infrastructure. We know there's problems with people eating every day. We know, but one of the things we don't talk about is lack of connectivity. We have places that are food deserts, and we have places that are information deserts because people
Mhm.
are just not connected. The world has moved on. The internet is a great thing. Could be a great thing or not, but it is a great thing. And but there's people who don't have access. They really don't have access. And most people in Africa, they have a smartphone. Everyone has a smartphone. Um, but access to knowledge using that smartphone is there's no connectivity. The bandwidth is just not good enough. So I think that is one of the reasons why people aren't in STEM. Resources and connectivity. What is the quality of STEM education
Yeah,
in
Anna would like you to rate the quality of education by country. He's creating a little bit of competition there, right?
Okay. We could do that.
Is he a mischief
So
maker?
yeah,
Is he a mischief maker?
yeah, I think so. I think so. Well, to be honest with you, you have to have a level playing field. I mean, you do. And I think it comes to what I was saying. It's all about resources. It really is all about resources. So I think if we had a level playing field as far as resources are concerned, then that would be a fair question. But because the playing field is not level as far as resources are concerned, then I would say, but as far as the innovation is concerned, as far as the research and development, I will put the US up there. There's research and development. We are interested in other people's research, our research and development. The US is really big on research, and the UK universities are as well. The thing that I like about the UK is that a lot of people go into careers, at least when I was in university, that weren't paycheck driven. You know, when we were choosing our careers, it wasn't paycheck driven. It was, what do you like to do? Again, and that's where that question about, the A levels comes in. When you start thinking about what you're doing at an early age, you're not thinking, oh, I'm going to go into engineering because it pays a lot, even though I hate mathematics. You're
Mhm.
thinking, oh, I like math, I'm going to go into what I naturally am good at. And so once people get into research, because you don't worry so much about finances, you just into research for the love of research. There's a lot of innovation there, but it's not a level playing field, and I really cannot rate who's who. But at some point in time in the future, when the whole world is connected equally through new technologies that are coming out there, there's a lot of new technologies that are going to bridge that connectivity gap. Where there's a new internet. I don't know if you know about Web3, but there's a new
No, tell me
internet.
about Web3.
Yeah, well, there's a new internet because it's called the Internet of Things. So, and I'm not an expert to talk about this, but I'm going to try my best. So, the internet that we have today is Web 2. It's the internet that we're on now,
Mhm.
and there's servers everywhere. We're
Yeah.
on a live stream, but there's servers, and
Mhm.
even though we think the internet is free, um, and everyone can get on the internet, etc. The internet is pretty much controlled by big servers, companies that hold the
Right.
servers.
Right.
If
Uh-huh.
a server goes down, then it goes down. And countries, governments, they store their data with these data centers, and they pay a lot of money to store their data with these data
Mhm.
centers. And this is what the unlevel playing field, even within the internet that was meant to be for all the people, has
Mhm.
come into play. So if you can't afford, the goods data service centers, then your service is pretty poor. Also, in the continent of Africa, we don't have our own servers. Our information leaves the continent and then comes back because it's stored somewhere else. And there are these huge fiber optic cables under the sea that take the data to wherever it's stored in Europe, in Asia, or in even North America. And that's what makes everything so slow with the bandwidth, etc. So the internet is is controlled by just a few, kind of like big companies. And then the data, we don't own our data. We don't own any of our data. You go on Facebook, you go on any of these, you don't own your data. And data is a big deal. Data is expensive. Companies buy data from other companies because with data you can advertise, you can tell people what you like. People think, oh, I was just talking, and it literally did happen. I was just telling my husband the other day that I think we need to have our air conditioning vents cleaned. And then, what popped out on Facebook? Air conditioning vents cleaners. And you're like, Facebook's listening to me. Yes, they are listening to you. They're not listening to you because they want to know what you're doing or they want to control your life. They listen to you because they want to advertise things to you. It's AI. Um, and so data is a big deal.
Mhm.
Now, Web3 is aiming to go back to what the intention of the internet was, which was the Internet of Things, interconnectivity between people, not
Okay.
between a person and a large entity and back and forth, which is what's become now.
Right.
So it's connectivity between people, and there are lots of companies out there in the tech space that are working on connectivity between people. And once you have that interconnectivity between people, you don't need a large server. We can have one town to another being connected in the web. That's different from the internet that we have now, where we all have to go to a centralized place and then we have an internet service provider. There's no such thing as an internet service provider because we're all going to be at some point internet service providers. And once we have that, um, then there will be more equity in education, because now you don't need the bandwidth. You have
Oh,
it right there. Simple radio waves are free. They exist all over. They exist. you know
wait, wait.
yeah.
Internet 3 is going to use radio waves?
It's going to use something similar to radio. I call them radio waves, but it's kind of like Wi-Fi. You know, Wi-Fi is a type of radio wave. Yes, we're going to need a centralized plug-in, but Internet of Things, for example, my cell phone could become a device that could broadcast internet to somebody else. You know, there's companies that I know of, you know, and I don't know if I have their permission to say their names on here, but they're working on these things, and it is going to be it's going to be the next wave of things, and it's the next tech space, so to speak, because people are taking the internet back and they're going to do great things with it. So when we talk about STEM and we talk about connectivity in Africa, it's coming. It's coming. There are companies that are working towards that. There's a company called Treefold. They have these internet boxes that they are actually using to connect people. There's another company called Ubuntu and Ubuntu Tribe. One of the main goals of that tribe is to democratize everything, you know, democratize education, access to STEM, investment in gold, investment in many different things that, you know, are centralized. We want to decentralize things. I know that you've heard of decentralized financing. There's a lot of things. There's a huge space out there in the tech world that are looking to decentralize everything instead of using banks that you can put $10,000 in a bank and they can give you maybe $20 at the end of the year back. Whereas decentralized finance, you have higher interest rates for investing your money in decentralized finance. You have better access to loans in decentralized finance to start small businesses. Again, like I said, in Africa, everyone has a cell phone. And there's going to be a time when you, people live in Africa, they can't buy gold in Africa because they can't
Mm.
afford it, you know. And there's a
Wait,
company that's actually going to allow people.
not buy gold in Africa?
Well, they can if they had the cash, but the small business person, you can't buy small amounts of gold. But if we
Okay.
digitalize gold, they can buy a small amount of gold, and gold is increased 500% in the last how many years, you know?
Right, right.
So there's people don't have access to investments, people don't have access to small loans, but with decentralized finance, people can have access to these things so that they could build themselves up. And so the space that I'm in now, what we're looking at is trying to make sure that there's access to education, there's access to finances, there's access to healthcare, you know. And like I said, there's the company I'm affiliated with, Ubuntu Tribe, that does that. They're looking and they've worked on it. Then they have all the things in place, and we're going to have healthcare, access to healthcare for all. You know, in the metaverse, in the space where people can go, not physically go to a university somewhere to learn medicine, but you can do it in your own space with the connectivity. It will level the playing field. Somebody asked me, you know, is there STEM in Africa? There will be. There will be very shortly, because
Mhm.
all we need is a level playing field and access to information. Um, you know, access to finances, access to being able to buy a small amount of gold and watch it increase instead of, you know, there's no access. The people mine, but they don't have the facilities to do, you know, enough things for their own community. You know, most of the money in the continent seems to leave, you know. And with democracy, with information, with
Mhm.
education, you know, we can it can stay and people can do well for themselves for sure.
So, what I've heard a lot from you is this idea of leveling the playing field when it comes to finance.
Absolutely.
Why are there so few women, though? Women specifically in STEM. What is it? What's happening with that?
I think stereotypically women have been, and there's women in STEM, you know, women have,
But not
there's
a lot. It's not, you know, for instance, it's really lopsided. And this is, this is an it kind of thing. And I'm just highlighting this because all it takes is intelligence in order to be in the field. So it's not like it's the type of job that is, you know, it takes physical labor, it takes
No.
mental endurance, and commitment. And so I'm just wondering, why aren't women focusing and flocking to that field?
I think stereotypically, women have been told what field they should go into. Just like you said, there's women in education,
Hmm.
but are there female math teachers? Yes, there are, but are they in proportion? Like, you go into a school, for example, if you're in elementary school, you'll be hard pressed to find that one man, because, well, there's a lot of women in elementary school. Then you go into middle school and you find the men, but they are the math and science teachers. But it's changing. However, the reason why women aren't going to STEM, and just like you said, I think it's collaboration and it's just belief that you can do it. And then
Hmm.
with women, I mean, in the field of science and technology, especially scientific research, it's a lot of hours. And we have children, we have these breaks, we have, it's a lot of hours and a lot of commitment and a lot of hours away from home and a lot of hours, and it's just not an easy thing to do. And then, and this is not just in STEM, this is everywhere as far as women are concerned. There's that pay differential. You're both working the same job, but for some reason women get paid less than men, in most places. And then there's that glass ceiling again. There's that glass ceiling where the women get just to a certain point and then they stop. But as far as women being in scientific research, I believe it's definitely possible, and it's encouraged in some places. Again, I think people have a huge misconception of the Middle East. There's a lot of women in STEM.
Good. I
Yes, in the Middle East,
in the
there are
Middle
a lot
East.
of women in STEM in the Middle East. It's almost 50-50, if not slightly more. There
Oh
are
wow.
a lot of women in STEM. I'm an educator in the Middle East, and I see that there's a lot of women in STEM. When you look at
Actually,
the
that's good to hear. We have to start somewhere.
Yeah,
Um,
and it's like people have this misconception: Middle East women are no, that is not the case. At least not where I am. And there are a lot of women in STEM, and I think that the West needs to look east. They really do. The West needs to look east for ideas on how to encourage women. I'll give you an idea. I'm an educator here in the Middle East. One of the things that blew my mind when I got here was that in every government school building and in every what we call county office in the United States, in every educational headquarter, there's a daycare. There's a daycare, and every woman is entitled to 3 months of maternity leave, fully paid. And
I
then
think
there's
that's huge. That's
Yep,
huge.
and then there's something else on top of that. That blew my mind. For a whole year after you've had a child,
Hmm.
you are entitled to what is known as, well, they've changed it now, they call it nursing hours, but back then we used to call it breastfeeding hours.
Hmm.
So you worked a couple of hours less, the same pay, your pay didn't change.
Okay.
Let's just put it that way. You had 3 months off, and then when you got back to work, you had somewhere to bring your child with you. And then while you were at work, you had designated time off, hours that you were not allowed to be given work, so that you can go and feed your child if you were the source of food for your child. And even if you weren't the source of food for your child, go and sit with your child and let them know that you're in the building.
You
And
know
that
what?
is in
That's a
every,
real solution. That is a
yeah.
real solution.
And so that inequity in the workplace of men and women, we don't see it. And and I say to my friends in the United States, when you go home, people ask you, well, how do you survive over there? Do you have to cover up? Yes, there's cultural things you have to do. You have to respect other people's culture. As far as dress code is concerned, no, I don't have to cover up. but I have to look decent. You know, there's certain things you have to do because you expect people to respect your culture, you respect other people's culture. But when it comes to women, as far as equity at the workplace and just little things to help women, and I think that is why we don't have women in STEM in that's why we don't have women doing as well in the workplace in the West, because I remember when I had my kids, you know, I took 3 months off when I had my youngest. And I remember my first paycheck after I went back to work was $95 for the whole month, because
Mm.
I took FMLA, which I had the 12
Then
weeks off,
medical
which was,
leave. Uh-huh.
yeah, which was great. But you only got paid as much as the vacation time you had, or
Uh-huh.
and once you were out of that time, you were out of that time. They
Mhm.
saved your job, but you didn't get paid. I was fortunate enough to be able to afford that, but what if I couldn't? I had to go back to work, or I had to give up going to work, or I had to find something else to do, an hourly that I could manage myself. But if I had had my daughter here in the Middle East, that was not a thing. My 3 months off, I'd have got my regular pay. And once I got back to work, I'd have taken my little girl with me, and I could have fed her instead of going to the back of the little prep room with a pump and
Mhm.
storing it in a little freezer, making sure everything was clean in a Ziploc bag so that I can give it to the daycare. So like I said, we have this misconception of the Middle East, but they're light years ahead when it comes to certain things. And that is one of the things that blew my mind. I was like, what? I remember doing the scheduling at a school, and they were like, oh, no, 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 you can't put this teacher to teach this because they're on breastfeeding hours. I was like, what's that? And they were like, oh, she
Question.
had a baby that was less than a year old, and she is entitled to 2 hours a day off. So you can't put a first period or last period because she can come in late and go early, you know? And I was like, oh, okay. Wow. I wish I was in my childbearing years. I'd have four more.
Ah! Well, you know what? That is a way to replenish the country, isn't it? That's very interesting.
Yeah, but I think we need to level the playing field, and we need to not expect women to be in the corporate world that are mothers that won't be. I mean, it's like, it's one or the other, isn't it? And
Mhm.
that is what holds up women. You can either be a good mother, or you can be a good corporate person. You could either be a great STEM researcher. There has to be a way of marrying the both. And I've seen a
I
model here.
really I have to say you've done a very beautiful job of explaining how the Middle East is saying yes and to women in the being in STEM. And so it's very easy to see with the accommodations that are being made
Absolutely.
why women in STEM is growing in that particular area. I had
Mhm.
this comment up and I want to see your thoughts on it. It says, by our beautiful, mischievous Annan, he says, the majority of girls and women in STEM are Asian. How to persuade non-Asian girls to be fascinated by and interested in STEM. So, how do you address that particular comment?
I think, okay, so a majority of the women in STEM are in Asia, perhaps. And to be honest with you, I can't speak to that because I haven't done the research to see what is the volume of women in STEM in Asia. I think there's a lot of people in Asia in STEM, period. Um,
Mhm. Mm.
yeah, I do believe that. I think that back in the 60s and 70s, the United States was the leader in innovation and technology and research.
Mhm.
And it's got the United States a long way. And then a lot of countries did the catch up where they they promoted STEM. They promoted STEM so that they can also innovate and become good with technology. And I can't speak to that because I don't have the research facts in front of me, but that's a lot of what the Asian countries have done. How do we encourage more people from more regions to be in STEM? You have to promote it. It starts from grassroots. It starts from the government. That's one. Also, it starts from in education. You have to make the young girls etc excuse me, believe that they can do it. You have to encourage, you have to have initiatives You know, there's some places where you have an initiative where this is, women's research day, or girls
Mhm.
research day, where you push the young ladies to get into research, to get into science, to get into math, you know, and you make it fun for them at a young age, and you just let them know they can do. And again, removing that stereotype, removing that layer of what boys can do versus what girls can do, and making it okay and normal. And I believe now, especially nowadays, it is becoming more okay and normal. However, again, as you move and you progress and you move on, there's a lot of still traditional societies, and where women's places in the home and men go out to work. Again, even though I do live in the Middle East, women's place, women have their place in the home. We're matriarchs. It's a natural thing. But at the
Mhm.
same time, you need to put in these, you need to remove these obstacles and these barriers that stop women from going out there and innovating and developing their career.
I
And if you can eliminate these barriers, where access to childcare, I think, is one of the major things that stop women, from pursuing anything. Good and easy access to childcare, and then just encouraging them and letting them know that it's okay, and then equality in pay as well. You
mhm.
know, Quality in pay. Myself, just like I told you, you know, there was a time when I was working to pay the daycare. And that's what you do. That's what you do. You work to pay the
So that this
daycare.
can't be the case that women have to be paid the market value, not the
Absolutely.
market value for women, but the market value, period.
Yeah, the market value period. And then, um, you
Healthcare
know,
has to be addressed.
healthcare, childcare, and
I'm sorry,
accessibility.
yeah,
And then,
healthcare and childcare have to
yeah,
be addressed. I
they
really
have
meant
to
to
be
say
addressed.
childcare, yes.
Yeah, and then women shouldn't find themselves going backwards and like, or making a choice. You know,
Mhm.
do I choose family, or do I choose, you know, do I choose science technology? Do I choose to work in a tech company, or do I choose to have a family? It shouldn't be one or the other. Men are expected to, but
Mhm.
then, so we should be expected to as well. And those barriers need to be in legislation,
I
you
like
know.
You know, recently I was part of the Lady Political Power
Yeah,
um, conference on International Women's Day. And I think this is a real reason why we have to have women making policy. Politics is simply policy in action. So
absolutely.
yes. So
Absolutely.
we have to have women making policy so that these types of things are considered. Because if you've never been forced to make the decision between your family and your
Career.
future, then
Yeah,
you might not think that those two coincide, and how it really is a gift to the nation to provide good childcare.
absolutely.
But
I
we are
mean,
Yeah, but currently we are stagnant. We are stagnant and do not have
absolutely.
enough people in the technology field because why? There aren't enough women in the field.
No,
And
there
why
are.
is that? There's not enough childcare.
There is not. There's not. And and like I said, there's not enough childcare. There really is not enough childcare, and there really is not a mandate. You know, to say, okay, this is legal and that is not legal. You try and level the playing field.
Mhm,
It is illegal to expect a woman who has a child under one here to work a normal full day. And employers natural will try and put pressure on you, but it's not legal. And once it's legislated that a person is entitled to this, then it becomes the norm, and it becomes accepted.
I see.
And that's what we need. We need good childcare. We definitely do. And then we need to stop making women be forced to make a choice between work and family, because women are encouraged. And then there's like Women's Day. um I didn't know about Women's Day until I came out of the United States. And
Really?
it's such a
Okay.
big deal out here. It really is. I mean, we do Valentine's Day, we do everything else, but Women's Day is a huge
Perhaps, there should be a greater effort.
yeah.
There should
Yeah.
be a greater effort. Um, before I forget, I really want to ask you, what is the process of minting a NFT?
Oh,
What is that
okay.
process?
Okay. Now I'm going to talk about MetaMask and all of that. Okay. So, first of all, you have to have a wallet that can hold cryptocurrency. There's several wallets out there that can hold cryptocurrency. One of them is MetaMask, and that's my wallet of choice. And so that's the first stage. And you could look up how to set up a MetaMask account, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Then you have to go to one of the sites where they allow you to mint. There's different sites.
I
There's
mean, what
two
does
that I
minting mean? What does that mean? What is minting?
minting means writing the identity of your particular NFT into a blockchain. That's what minting
Okay,
means. Yeah.
I see.
And
Okay.
we can go into blockchain technology as well. But what blockchain? A blockchain is basically a ledger, just like you have a notebook. Okay, and it's a ledger where information is stored electronically.
Mm-hmm.
It's stored electronically, transparently, and forever. So
Mm-hmm.
once something is written on a ledger, you can't say it didn't happen. You can't say it doesn't exist. You can't say any of those because it is electronically tagged. And whatever happens to that piece of information that's written on that ledger, it could move from a place to place. Anything can happen to it. You could always track it forever.
So I
Um,
have a question. If I put this highlighter and I minted it, and I said this highlighter is a NFT,
it
and
can be.
yeah, and it is worth $1 million.
If
How does that work?
somebody Okay, so if you minted that, so basically you took a picture of your highlighter, or you
Hmm.
digitalized it in some type of artwork, and then you basically minted it onto a blockchain. And there's different companies that have blockchains that you can mint NFTs onto. I use OpenSea and
Hmm.
Rarible. Those are the two. There's also some blockchains on the centralized exchanges like Gate.io and Binance that you can actually have NFTs. I have my NFTs on Gate.io as well. Once you go ahead and you mint um, you have the particular record on the blockchain that this particular um, number of digits, so it's like 16 digits, is affiliated with this particular artwork, and it lives in this wallet right now. And if
Hmm.
somebody wants to buy it, they go through the blockchain and they buy it. Now it goes to their wallet, and you can forever track that thing, and you can forever see where they are, and you can forever see where it's going. And
But
so
hold on one
minting
second, because
means,
I want to talk about this forever process.
mhm.
Because who says that this organization who's tracking blockchain, who says they can't go out of business?
It's not an organization, and that's what decentralization is. It is not an organization.
Well, you said I have my blockchain with this organization. So how do these
Well, I
people?
have, well, actually, let me rephrase that. I have it in a marketplace, but it's in my wallet. My NFTs are sitting in my wallet. They belong to me.
So
But I
can I
am
become a
publicizing.
marketplace? Can I become a marketplace?
Yes, you can. Anyone can become a marketplace. You just write the code that you're a marketplace, and this is where the technical code. Remember, I failed that computer science class, but this is where the technical part comes into. Anyone can become a marketplace. Absolutely. In fact, one of the things I really am looking into, because when you look at the traditional NFT marketplaces, um, we're very, very much underrepresented. And one of the things that really I'm looking into is to see if we could have a marketplace where we can have more diverse artwork. But yeah, so I'm using the marketplace, but they're mine. They don't belong to the marketplace. I choose to advertise them on the marketplace, but
So you
they
so it's the
don't belong.
marketplace like the mall.
It's like a mall. I mean, go to OpenSea.com. It's like a mall. It's a mall where whatever artwork, whatever you're into, you could find an NFT for it. And like I said, it's written in the blockchain that this wallet, my wallet, minted this NFT, and it's sitting in my wallet unless somebody has bought it. Now it's sitting in their wallet, you know. But so when you say if this organization goes out of business, it can, because it is decentralized and it's on the blockchain. It's like somebody asked me the same question. It's like, what if Bitcoin goes out of business? We're like, we don't even know who wrote the code for Bitcoin. They're an anonymous person, and they could be they could be around, they could no longer be around, it could be an organization. We don't know who wrote the code, but what we know is that once something is written on a blockchain, you can't unwrite it. So, and it's decentralized and it doesn't belong to any one person unless, well, yes, it does, because there's people who mine Bitcoin and then they send their computer and then they sell it on to other people. But what I'm saying is that it's a decentralized space and there's no company that can go out of business. And therefore, my melanin art goddesses will now become obsolete because the company that, no, it's not like that. They belong to me. They're always going to be in my wallet. And it's not going anywhere.
Who can write blockchain?
Anyone who can write code, women, men, everyone. You can
And
write a
so,
code into the blockchain. Yes.
okay. And where is the blockchain?
Okay, so the good thing about the decentralized world is, and the blockchain is, that remember those data centers I told you about that hold millions and millions and millions of points of data?
Mm-hmm.
With blockchain technology, yes, you have data points with millions and millions of data, you know, in a blockchain somewhere, because there's centralized blockchains as well as there's decentralized blockchains. I'm going to talk about decentralized blockchain. Blockchain is in everyone's computer. I can become what is known as a validator, where for a piece of data to be said is true on a blockchain, different people have to validate it, different computers, computing power. It's decentralized. So my computer could be one that has one millionth of the computing power that's needed in one particular blockchain, if that makes sense. It's
Hmm.
decentralized, where instead of all the data being held in one place, it's spread out into many, many computers, because a data center is just a huge place with lots of computing power. It crunches numbers, it does what computers do. What the
So,
blockchain does is allows it allows multiple computers to be able to do the calculations that one big data center does. And they call them validators. Multiple computers can validate a one piece of data to say, okay, this is good. And now you can do such and such and such a thing. And so, where is the blockchain? If it's a centralized blockchain, it's in the company's database somewhere. If it's decentralized, it's in everyone who's interacting with that blockchain's computer. So
so if if the internet went down, because you know the internet is, you know, based off of satellites,
yeah,
okay, and the internet went down, would the value of Bitcoin and NFTs disappear?
no, because if the internet as we know it went down, first of all, what does that mean? It means that a big server somewhere has gone down. That's all that means. But
Mhm.
the internet as it is today, even though it's not Web3, I don't think that's not a word, but I was going to say it's not go downable. I don't think it's possible to.
Well, it's not possible. You know, I'm
Yeah,
really
it's
trying to
possible
wrap
to
my head
manipulate.
around this because when I asked the question about minting, it was like I went down a rabbit hole. Well, this one and this one and this one because it just well, it's certainly not tangible, but I'm wondering where is the beginning and the end. And so that's where these questions come from because I'm like, you know, what are all the ingredients? I think that I need and the audience need, we need a actual PowerPoint from beginning to
on
seriously, we need
everything.
this. We need this from beginning to end. So I would say beginning is where in the world blockchain begins and who can do it and all of these
Actually, that
kind of
is that is that I mean that is one of the things we do as far as in educating people on blockchain.
so
That is something we will definitely have to do because I
yes,
think
yes,
it's
yes. And then
vital. No,
all the way down to, Bitcoin and, and NFT. So all of those things.
yeah,
I
but
have
I think it's absolutely vital. It's vital because um, when I got into blockchain, the reason why I understood blockchain, my husband was going to invest in Bitcoin, and I'm like, "You want to do what with your 401k?" And he's like, "I want to invest in Bitcoin." I'm like, "Okay, wait, I am going to find out what that is." And then I learned what it was because you don't take risks until
mhm,
you understand what you're doing. And then I learned about blockchain. I was like, wow, this is how every blockchain equals transparency.
wow.
That's blockchain equals transparency because I could have a crypto wallet. If you know my wallet address, which is public, by the way, you could see every transaction I have ever done. So if you have a bank, you have a company, you don't have to worry about accounting books. You don't need an accountant. You don't need an auditor. You have the blockchain. Once a code is written, it's written and it can't be changed. The computer doesn't know who you are. And therefore blockchain equals transparency, and we definitely need to talk about that. We need to have a session, an educational on blockchain, because it is an amazing technology and it's going to change the world. It is going to
Wow.
change the world, just like the internet, just like electricity changed the world. The internet changed the world some, but
Yeah.
blockchain is going to do for the world what electricity did to the world. It is going to change the world for sure.
Fascinating, fascinating. Well, Joy, you have been a joy, and you leave us with more questions and more excitement. I'm just so very, very thankful that I had the opportunity.
And
uh,
thank you so
and
much. And I'm sorry about the time difference. I thought it was, I read your last message to me and I was like, okay, 10 o'clock, 10:30, this time. And so I was,
all is well. You
one
know what? You're
less
very
hour.
popular. You're very popular, and there's a lot of we're working on more than one thing together.
Yeah.
So I see how you transpose those. But the important thing is that you are here with us, and I am so amazingly and powerfully excited about what you're doing, and thank you for sharing
And
your
thank you
journey
for
with
having
us.
me. It's an honor. It really is an honor. Thank you for having me. It's been amazing. And,
I'm looking forward
for
to
sure.
having you. I'm looking forward to having you back. So yes, stay tuned, family. Thank you,
Thank you.
Loveland. Thank you, honeybees, for hanging out. You've gotten a lot of love here. Um,
Thank you so much. Thank you all so much. I really appreciate it. And thank you so much, Love. Thank you, Coach Love. I
the
really
joy,
appreciate being on your program for sure. And it's been a pleasure. It really has been.
absolutely, the joy and power of women in STEM is truly a continued blessing. Excellent. Thank you so much. Bye
Thank
bye.
you. Bye bye. Thank you so
Bye.
much. Bye.